Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Grain-Free Gallon. As you can see, me and Gertrude are just chilling here. Got some of our other buddies behind us, and here in Virginia, we're getting into the fall. The leaves are starting to change, starting to get colder, and Gertrude and I thought what better time for that than to talk about seasonal eating and how important that is. Now, just to preface and kind of take it back a second before we get into seasonal eating, hear the donkey? Nice. So before we get into seasonal eating, I want to talk about, everyone is always wondering and asking, like, what's the right diet that they should eat, right? They want to know, is it vegan and plant-based, or is it more paleo and ketogenic, or does it not matter what you eat, and maybe as long as you do like intermittent fasting, then that's all that matters. There's a million different diets, and what gets really confusing is that there's a million different experts swearing that this diet's the one for each one, right? And with each diet, you can also find all kinds of scientific evidence that proves that this is the right diet or this is the right one, and that's where it gets really confusing, because the reality of the situation is, if I want to prove a point about, say, veganism, I can find like 10 studies, a lot more, but let's just say I could easily Google and find like 10 scientific studies that prove veganism is an ideal diet. But at the same time, I could find 10 studies that prove a very high animal protein diet, like a ketogenic diet, is the perfect diet. And now you're left like, okay, there's all these studies, there's all these experts saying these different diets, but what's really the proper one? So I'm going to let you in on a little secret, okay, that all of these experts who are pushing for all of these different diets and all these different types of eating, most of them are simultaneously right and wrong at the exact same time. And what I mean by that is that there is not one type of diet, one type of eating that is going to work for everybody all the time. It just doesn't exist, okay? So I'm sorry, but had to drop that bomb. If you didn't already know that, now you know. There's not one diet that's going to work. There's some people that are going to favor and do much better on a plant-based and vegan diet, and there's some people that are going to do much better on a high-fat or high-animal product diet, like a paleo or ketogenic. There's some people who are going to do better with grains. There's some people who aren't going to do well with grains. Some people who need a more liquid diet. There's all these different variables, and the thing is too, we as humans are not necessarily designed to eat one diet all the time. That's a big misconception too. Say just because someone is vegan right now and that's the best diet for them at this moment, doesn't mean in 6 months that's going to be the case. There's all types of different challenges or health issues or seasonal influences that dictate how we should eat. Now, and really seasonal eating, which I'll describe, is a diet that is going to work for most of the people most of the time. Because like I said, there's not one blanket diet that applies to everyone. It's just not out there. However, the closest thing that you can get that is going to work for most of the people most of the time is seasonal eating. I'll give you an example. Here in Virginia, we have 4 very distinct seasons. It's not somewhere like Florida where it's tropical all year round. So in Virginia, we have 4 very distinct seasons. So in the summer, when it's very hot, very humid, seasonally, what's naturally available here that time of year is going to be things like a lot of different fruits and vegetables, especially raw and colorful fruits and vegetables like berries, and maybe making juices and all these different things. So you're going to be predominantly plant-based in a very hot climate like it would be here in the summer. You're going to be very plant-based and have predominantly cooling foods, which are usually going to be raw plant-based foods. That doesn't mean vegan, but in the summertime you might favor a predominantly plant-based diet that's going to cool your system because the climate's hot, so your body naturally needs to be cooled. And if you are going to have animal protein, then it's probably not going to be real heavy animal protein like a lot of red meat. It would probably be more like eggs or chicken or maybe some type of fish, right? But moving into the fall, where we're going now, where it's getting colder and the seasons are changing, that's when seasonally, just based off what's available, you're going to start to have warmer foods, right? That's when you're probably going to move to more warming things like bone broths or soups or stews, or as far as different plant-based ways to go, you're going to maybe be moving more towards root vegetables and things like that, opposed to a bunch of colorful fruits that are usually available during the summer. Also, a very interesting thing about the fall is there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. John Douillard, who I would recommend you look into his work, because he's probably the foremost authority on seasonal eating. And he actually talks about how in the fall, humans produce a chemical that is designed specifically to break down gluten, which is kind of an indicator from nature that this is the time of year that you would start incorporating grains into your diet. If you're going to eat grains, then the fall is the time to do that. Then moving into the winter is where you're really going to be probably more into more of a ketogenic or paleo diet. So more animal proteins, very warming foods, maybe even start to move away from the grains and eat kind of high fat concentrated foods. And then the spring would be like a mix, right? It's kind of similar to the fall. Spring, you would start to then introduce more, maybe some more fruits, some more vegetables, more color into your diet, because things are starting to blossom and bloom in the spring. So long story short, seasonal eating is a huge subject that I can't fully cover in this video. That's why I would recommend you go to lifespa.com. That's Dr. John Douillard's website. He has extensive research and information on seasonal eating. But look at where you are, right? If you're in Florida, which means it's pretty much going to be hot and tropical all year around, then most of the year you're probably going to favor a more plant-based diet. Again, that doesn't mean vegan, just means predominantly plants and cooling foods. If you're somewhere up north where, like way up north where it stays pretty cool all year, then you're probably going to keep, unless you're a sworn, person who doesn't want to eat any animal protein, you're probably going to keep more warming, maybe animal-based foods in your diet throughout the year. And if you're in a place like we are in Virginia, where you have 4 very distinct seasons, then you're going to switch up your diet based on those 4 seasons, just like we try to do here. So that's a synopsis of seasonal eating. Like I said, it's a huge subject, so I would really recommend go to lifespa.com and look into the research that Dr. John Douillard has. But like we said, Gertrude and I were talking about it. We're getting ready for the fall, so we're going to start changing the way we eat. She'll probably stick to the grass, I'm guessing, right, Gertrude? But I'm going to start, changing to more of a seasonal diet. So seasonal eating, you really can't go wrong with it. It is the way nature intended us to eat. So do some research on what's naturally available during the seasons for you, and that is a diet that is probably going to serve you pretty darn well most of the time. So we will see you next Friday on The Grain-Free Gallon.